Hey dude, welcome to the video. I'm Sham, and today I'm going to teach you how to do a super cool dye job on your favorite disc golf frisbee. Now there's a lot of different ways that you can dye a disc. You can put it in shaving cream with some powder dye. You can put it in lotion with some liquid dye. Heck, you can just paint right on the thing if you want to. But I'm going to talk today about my favorite method to dye a disc, which is cell dyes. Cell dyes use silicone oil and Floetrol to create a layered color effect that often is random, and I tend to think that it's super cool. And through my method, it's super easy and it's really quick. You can dye a disc in only about 3.5 hours. This video is going to be broken down into 4 parts. The first part is going to be a material list for you to get to accomplish this dye. The second part is going to be about preparing the disc so that it's ready to be dyed. And the third part is going to be about actually mixing up your dye, putting it into a dye bed, and getting your disc in there ready to go. The last part of this video is going to be the big reveal of our dye job that I'm going to do as I teach you. So make sure you stay tuned for the reveal so you see the awesome potential of this method. So without further ado, let's hop right into the materials that you're going to need to do this dye job. Okay, now that you have your materials, let's talk about preparation. To prepare your disc, you want to start by knowing you have the right disc to dye. What I mean by that is certain plastics are going to take dyes better. They're going to show your colors off better than other plastics. For example, a base plastic like DX or Jawbreaker is not going to retain the dye super well, and the colors aren't going to be as vibrant as if you chose an opaque premium plastic like ESP or Star. Or for this particular example, we're going to use a white Neutron from MVP. Neutron plastic, in my opinion, is probably my favorite to dye. I find that I get the best results from it, and I find that the colors stay vibrant longer with this plastic in comparison to other plastics. So once you've chosen the right disc in terms of plastic, it's time to make sure that the disc is clean. Of course, just good old water, soap, good old elbow grease is going to do the job for you. You just want to get any dirt, grime, stuff baked into cuts and gashes on the disc. You want to get all that out so that it doesn't interfere with the dye job in any way. The next one, and I'm going to bring the camera in closer to show you because this is more specific to my process, so come on in. Now that you're in nice and close, I'm just going to be a set of talking hands. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get this disc up to temperature. In this method, we're going to use a heat lamp to basically encourage the plastic of the disc to open up and let that dye inside. That's why this method only takes just a few hours to complete. It's because you heat the disc up using a heat lamp. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our Ultimate Frisbee and place it under our heat lamp. We'll put the disc in there, and then we're going to take our thermometer, our aquarium thermometer. We'll turn it on, and we're just going to place that on top and turn this on. You can verify that it, is getting hot, then you should be good. Now, one thing I do want to note here as we're setting this up is temperature for this should be about 100 degrees. You don't want to get any hotter than about 110, and you want to get above 100. So somewhere in that range is great. Now, I've noticed that when I do these dye jobs in the summer, I accomplish that 110 degrees at this, or 100 more or less degrees at this 14-inch mark of distance between the light or the heat lamp and the disc. However, right now it's winter and I'm in Minnesota in my garage, so it's a little bit chillier. So I might actually take something and just raise this up a few inches so that I can get a consistent 100 degrees. However, I think we're good here, so we're going to move on to the next step of the process. Now that we have this all set up, this is going to sit here until we have our dye bed ready and we're ready to actually put the disc in and dye it. This is basically just preheating the disc so that when we do, when we're done making that dye bed, it's ready to go in. So let's move on to actually creating the dyes and mixing them all together. Alright, this is Editor Sham here. I'm doing this separately from the original recording because I want to be a little bit more verbose when it comes to explaining this process. So first step is I'm going to pull out 2 mason jars because this is going to be a 2-color dye job. We're going to do pink and yellow. I'm using ProChem dyes here, specifically pinkish red and sun yellow. We got a couple of stir sticks and our silicone oil, our pint glass, and our electric kettle for the hot water. I like to use an electric kettle because it's super quick and easy. But you could just use hot tap water or boiling water. So here I am checking our temperature, making sure that it's rising. Making sure that this is rising now will help later, because if it's going in the right direction now, it'll probably be ready by the time we're ready to put the disc in. So hopefully that's at 100 later. The next step is to pour our dyes into, scoop some of this powder rather, into our dye mason jars here. Now the Floetrol is white, so the amount of powder is going to depend on the color that you're looking for. I would say roughly between a half teaspoon, maybe even up to a teaspoon of dye, but if you consult ProChem, they will give you specifics. I sort of just eyeball it and add dye as needed, but for the most part it usually works out great with just eyeballing it. So next we're going to take some of this hot water and we're literally going to put a tablespoon in. Not much. All this does is it helps dissolve that powder. If you skip this step, you'll end up with some flecks of dye in your dye bed, and the colors don't look smooth. So now that we've got that dissolved, a couple of stirs is all it takes to dissolve them. You just want to get all the clumps out. I'm identifying that between these 2 colors we have to have 12 total ounces. So I'm going to do 6 ounces in each one of these mixed up dyes. A complete dye bed, you need at least 12 ounces. 12 to 14 is really the sweet spot. But you need enough dye that the disc can sit on top and it will reach all the edges. So if I have 2 dyes, I'll do each one at 6 ounces, which I'm doing here. And now that we have that poured, it's just a matter of stirring it up. Circular stirs, making sure to scrape all the dye off the edges of the cup. And really, you can just continue to stir until you reach the color that you are looking for. Here I'm going for a pink, sort of a darker pink. And it's looking pretty good to me.
So again, just circular, stirring it up. We got 6 ounces of color here, which is going to equate to half our dye. And now we're just going to do the same process again for each color that we want to have in our dye. So we're going to take some of our sun yellow, and we're going to scoop out a little bit. I will say with yellow, I tend to be a little more heavy-handed when it comes to the amount of powder dye I put in, just because yellow is a more subtle color, and I've had it where the yellow doesn't even really take because I didn't use enough. So now we're going to add our hot water to dissolve the dye. And we're going to mix that up until it is dissolved. Again, no clumps, nothing like that. Find the 6 ounce mark here on our mason jar. And we're just going to pour until we hit that. We'll stir it up, and then we're ready for the next step. And here you can really see the color change as I whisk this. And there we go, we have both of our colors. So next we're going to grab our silicone oil. Now since we have a lot of color here, we have 6 ounces of each, I like to go with more silicone oil. Essentially what this is going to do is it's going to create bubbles of color, and so when we put the silicone oil in, it creates barriers between the colors once we put them in the dye bed, and then once those barriers of silicone oil break, it creates the cells that are so cool. So here we're putting about 10 drops in each, and then I'm going to stir them in a very particular fashion. So the stirs are from bottom to top, and they're not circular. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well 6 there, just to break up that silicone oil. The more stirs you do, the smaller the cells are going to be. So I like to do fewer stirs, just to make sure that I have larger cells and the colors don't blend, because if you have more cells, the colors tend to blend a little bit more, in my opinion. So now we're going to double check our temperature and make sure that we're at the right spot, because our dyes are ready. So we're at 100. We are right on schedule. That's perfect. The next step, we're going to grab this Ultimate Frisbee and leave our disc underneath the dye bed. We're going to put down this Ultimate Frisbee because that's actually going to be what our dye bed goes into, and we are going to place our dyes on there. Just in case we have runoff, we might as well get that dirty because it's going to get the dye in it anyways. Now we're going to do a soft pour onto the side of the cup here. A couple of interesting things to consider when you think about the order in which you put your colors in. Now we're doing a simple one here with 2 dyes, but essentially when I think about where the dye is, I want to put the color on the bottom that I want to be at the top of the dye bed. Since that color will be the last to come out of the cup, I feel that it typically ends up touching or being the top color that the rest of the colors that you're using come up through. So keep that in mind. I'm going to do a big swath of pink at the bottom, a very soft pour, and now I'm coming in with the yellow. Again, super soft, and you can see that the yellow dye sits on top of that pink dye, and we're going to continue doing this switching back and forth between any one of our colors that we have. We're going to continue doing this until this cup is full of all these dyes stacked on top of one another. Another thing to note here is doing larger portions of colors can end up having, large like sections of that color in your dye bed. But to be honest, I enjoyed having that effect more than the adverse, where if you mix a lot of little portions of these colors on top of one another, if you stack them up really small, you tend to have a lot more bleeding of colors, and they mix together a little bit more. So I like to do big sections, which of course easy to do with 2 colors here. I'm just going to speed up the process. I mean, get on with it. How much more can you say about stacking colors in a cup? So now that we're done with that, we're going to take our Ultimate Frisbee. Just a little side view of this stacked cup. We're going to take our Ultimate Frisbee and we're going to place it on top, flip over our cup so that we're like that. Now we're going to butter our bed, is what I like to call it. Just running our cup around the disc here to create a small film of that dye. And then we're going to slowly lift the cup in a circular motion, peeling it off that dye bed, and now we're going to watch the magic happen. So as you see, all of those colors are going to come up through and just burst through that top layer, and you'll start to see these cells emerge, and they're going to expand, and we'll just watch a time lapse. So I like to let this sit here for about 5 minutes. As it sits here, you can see it's just expanding. This footage is sped up, obviously, and this is probably the coolest part about this dye. And while I let that expand, I typically like to wash all my cups and equipment that I can. It's a good way to stay on top of the cleaning while it's happening, and you have to wait about 5 minutes for that expansion anyway, so you might as well just get that done. So now that we have our dye bed ready, we're going to take our disc and we're going to grab the inside rim and gently place it into the dye bed at a diagonal angle. Now the reason you do this is so that you get any air bubbles out of there, because if you get any air bubbles in there, you'll end up with just a white void on the disc once you rinse it off. So now we can move that dye bed underneath the lamp, and the disc is essentially already done. We just need to wait and rinse it off when it is ready. So we're going to set a timer for 2 hours, and we'll wait for that to finish. Now that we've waited an hour after turning off the heat lamp, it's time to rinse it off and see how our dye job turned out. So we're just going to pull the disc out, put it in our 5-gallon bucket with water, and we're actually going to put our dye bed back over here and not rinse that. We might use that later. Now we'll just scrub our disc off in the water with our hands. And we pull it out, and we have a beautiful cell dye. Well, that's going to wrap up the video. Thanks so much for joining me as I walk through my cell dye tutorial. I hope you end up using this dye, and if you do, let me know how it worked for you. Feel free to drop a comment below, like the video, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, dude. Have a great day.